Hey, it's Xenoblade with the next Xenoblade 3 class buff, where I go over how to buff classes to work better at their intended playstyles. So today I'm going to be going over Zephyr, the class with some of the best drip in the entire game. Look at how dripped out this cat is. So the problem with Zephyr is that it's an evasion tank focused on the agility stat, in a game where for once the agility stat is not good. It's pretty good in the story where it is able to evade things and deal good enough damage, but because of how things scale in the late and post game, the agility stat becomes worthless because of how accurate enemies are, and its damage doesn't really keep up with what other classes can do. So we're going to be buffing it to be able to keep aggro and evade better. So first up, we're going to be looking at the skills. First skill, Storm Gale, boosts agility. Now, since the agility stat is pretty much worthless, you are never going to use this on any other class. There's no point having it as a skill to be mastered, so just replace this skill. Add this into the base agility of the class, and you basically change nothing, because just having this as a skill doesn't really do anything. So just add that into the base modifier of the agility of the class, and that way you get somewhat better agility overall. Since it's not going to be a skill that can scale, you're just going to have better base agility. And replace this with either the unblockable skill that I think it's Tactician and Machine Assassin both get, or a new skill entirely where you have at base level 20% and then goes up to 100% chance to pierce defenses. That would also be pretty useful and fits with the theme of the class. The field effect. So this is a pretty awful field effect, probably the worst defender field effect. So we're going to keep that effect, but we're going to add something way better to it. At base level, 20%, and then rising by 20% each level until reaching 100% at maximum. 100% chance to redirect attacks taken by allies within the field to the Zephyr themselves, with the 16% chance to outright evade any of those attacks that are being redirected to you. This way, it's actually usable for allies to stand within the field. It gets better as you go, so it's not too powerful early game. It's just somewhat useful early game, more or less the same effect as it already has in the early game before it gets upgraded. But then once it is upgraded, you can use it to just always make sure that allies don't get hit. And then you only have to worry about your own frailty. Split second counter. Counters spike damage in Xenoblade 3, not good. It's never going to be good, but we can at least make it more useful and have this scale up to 500% of attack. It's still not going to be a huge source of damage, but it'll at least be supplementary damage instead of just barely existing. And then lastly, Ether Sanctuary raises ether defense. This is another one of those skills where you don't really need it to exist, but I guess I understand why this one exists. Why this one exists, since it could be a master skill. Actually, I don't think this is a master skill. Yeah, I just checked, and it's not a master skill. So I guess you could just make this one the master skill, since we'd be removing this one as a master skill and skill entirely. But I would also increase this a little bit, because if you're going to go on making Zephyr a really tanky on the ether side class, just go a little further with that and make this 40%. Since it's not additive, it's multiplicative. I think I said that with too many syllables. Now onto the arts. So for arts, bit of a scaling issue with how weak some of them are. I would make the ratio of this maybe a little bit better, but the main thing I'm going to be doing for the arts won't involve directly increasing their damage. So it could remain there, and it's not really going to be the big point of this to increase the damage, since we're going to be holding aggro other ways. But the main thing I would do is, this would also help with increasing damage, just not directly. I would increase the hit counts of all the arts. it makes more sense to give high hit counts for these kind of weapons. So I would increase the hit count of every art by 1. This way you would have more crit recharge opportunities for them. And then you could spam the arts more, you could deal more damage, hold aggro better, without having to actually change the art ratio or anything like that. So just add 1 to all the hit counts. Mio herself already gets an extra hit on Airfang, which is pretty good, but I would add onto that too. So instead of 3 hits for Airfang, where everyone else gets 2, she would get 4 instead of 3. And Butterfly Blade, I think this is 2 hits normally, so I would make that 3 hits. Wide Slash, that would become 2 hits. The effects, I wouldn't change anything about the effects, except for Speed Demon. Why? Why do you do this? Just remove the negative effect of this, and then it's good. It's worth using, and you can actually have decent evasion. Since this isn't boosting the agility stat, it's boosting evasion as a whole, I believe. So it's multiplicative of your evasion. So yeah, just remove the negative of that, and then you have much better evasion. And Glow Ring. This one's really simple. If debuffs worked, this would be an amazing art. So make debuffs work. How many times in this series have I said to buff something by just making debuffs work? And Gemini Strike, nothing to really say there. So that's really it for Zephyr. There's not really a lot to change about the arts. The main thing I wanted to change about the arts is give them higher hit counts, because I feel like that would fit better into the playstyle than just directly buffing the damage or anything. Since then you could more reliably crit recharge on everything. Maybe Butterfly Blade just increase the damage a little bit, but it's also a really low cooldown art, so having crit recharge on top of multiple hits for it, I feel like it wouldn't really matter if it's low damage, since you'd just be spamming it so much. So I think that's it to say for Zephyr. Main things would be the skills. Didn't really have much to say about the arts. And for now, I think I'm only going to have 1 more, actually 2 more. I'll have Royal Summoner that I'll do as the last class for the series, but then I also want to do a remake of the first episode of this series, which was on Tactician. I want to do another episode on fixing Tactician to add more to that to make Tactician more usable. Since I've had some other ideas about Tactician since starting this series originally. But if you watch the end, then comment Blossom Dance down below, and if you want to see the other class buffs that I've done, check out the Xenoblade playlist that I have in the bottom left corner of the video that you can click on right now. I've also got a series of Xenoblade 2 buff videos that you can check out in that playlist. So, see you next time!